Josh. He's our president, and he is going to talk tonight about a project that he has actually been working on for a while. You may be familiar with it, Tom's Diner. And actually, he's going to be talking more broadly as to why Tom's Diner is important architecturally. Its design is actually by a firm that is outside of Colorado that did quite a few works in Colorado and across the country. And their design work is extremely important to the modern movement. And so, in the context of Tom's Diner, Josh is going to introduce you to the firm of, is it pronounced Armet or Armet?
Armet.
Armet. And so I don't know how many details of the actual Tom's Diner project he'll be able to get into because it's still a work in progress. But I think the important thing is the historic context of the project that Josh is going to be bringing you today. And if you want to give a little bit about your background and furthermore, that you'll be able to tell the story better than me beyond that.
Uh,
Here's
yes.
Josh Robinson, our president.
Well, thank you, Adam. What a wonderful introduction. He's such a kind fellow. We have a couple folks on the call tonight that were involved with this with Tom's, so have touched the Tom's Diner project. Now, for the most part, what we're going to talk about is the design approach of Armet and Davis and really what they were trying to do here. So like I say, this is restaurant design, right? Armet and Davis. Alden Davis, shown here, and Louis Armet. And the two, the team together here is Armet and Davis. And now they've been a group that I've been interested in for a long, long time. In fact, Tom's Diner was one of the first places that I came to when I came to Denver. I think I had my first meal there. But what interested me in Armet and Davis was that this was sort of a group of folks that were doing some pretty neat modern architecture with some pretty serious designs in it. Pretty serious design intent that sort of masquerades as this kind of goofy, fun thing that nobody really was taking seriously. Their bread and butter, what they became known for was really these funky coffee shops, right? And they really thought of them as restaurants. I think a lot of times we call them diners today, but for them, these weren't these cheap little lunch counters. They were intended to be this sort of experiential dining thing, something that happened to them. An experience was something that they were certainly familiar with. Prior to doing all of these coffee shops, and they're based out of LA, I think they started in 47, 48. They were doing churches, and the firm is still in existence today, and they'll do churches occasionally. But this was a team that certainly knew how to, shape experience. I mean, my God, if you can, design a house of worship, this is some heavy stuff here, right? Which is interesting to me. Now, when you look at a lot of their work, and this is just one of a number of churches that they had done in California for the most part, they're all these sort of, experiential, these big roof buildings. They do something to you. You go underneath them, you're experiencing God. It's a little different than a coffee shop. And this is the sort of stuff that I think we're most familiar with from them. But it's a similar approach, right? It's a big roof. And they jokingly called their work roofitecture. They said that they really weren't designing buildings. They were designing dining experiences, and this was intended to be, simply a pavilion out here in a garden. And they're usually on a corner lot surrounded by, parking on two sides or something like that. But this kit of parts that they would work with was roof and glass and, sort of this California modern stuff that you saw all over the place in the 50s, 60s. Um, but there were experiences. These roofs created spaces, right? One of their initial clients was actually a fellow that had done that owned a bunch of car lots, and he says, God, if you're going to try to sell hamburgers, everybody's hamburgers the same for the most part, especially a coffee shop burger. I mean, you can drive past a coffee shop and you know what you're going to get before you even look at the menu, right? You know what it's going to taste like. It's all about the same. Everybody's selling the same thing. So if you could sell an experience, that was neat. And he said that the way that he sold cars was that the car looked 1,000 times better on the showroom floor than it did out on the street. And, if we could sell the people inside, the animation, that would be something that could sell hamburgers, something that could sell coffee. So they ran with this idea of what they called jokingly roof architecture. And the roof became an icon. And that was really it. Um, and a whole series of different roof designs, and they would create these for different chains, site specific restaurants. Maybe it was the roof became the branding in some way, and we'll look at that quite a bit this evening. um, the roof became an icon, it became signage, it was the building essentially. The rest of it was really just sort of dining in a garden with a thin thermal barrier of, for the most part, glass. This is another example of their work. Biff's. This was a chain. They did a number of these. This funky sort of roof shape. Huddle. A number of these buildings as well, and they would be these sort of folded plates with a sun flap on the end. Norms. This was an infill norms. They had done a lot of freestanding ones, but in their infill locations, this might be a design for one of those. Um, Again, this big roof, and the roof becomes the icon. The sign pierces through it. Locations that might be tucked up underneath an existing building. Here, you've got a big roof design here, right? The ceiling going through the space and different things happening underneath. They took this idea and used it quite a lot. They did a number of hotels along with these restaurants, some apartment buildings, things like that. There's two slides here showing folded plate for one of those. Uh, I think this was Palm Imperial or 400 or Imperial 400 motor lodges or whatever they were called. And the whole multifamily wing of what they were doing came from developments like this, right? Coffee shops on the corners, the motel going around this. Maybe the back end of it is studio units that could be, for rent apartments. This led them down some pretty neat roads and took their work across the country, especially when they started to get tied up with chains. While they did a fair amount of sort of sophisticated stuff that was supposed to be, the kind of the sophisticated diner, there was an awful lot of themed buildings as well. And when you look at what's going on back here, they're pretty straightforward, pretty honest, and kind of clean buildings. But then, you start doing these kind of sculptural things that are play into the theme, right? God, at the time, tiki was an enormous thing, very, very popular. And they'd play all kinds of different themes. This is a restaurant they did, right? Sort of has a Denny's truss back here. Looks a little familiar. But the roof becomes this icon. We see it here with this, the Tahiti, right? This uh, sort of tribal roof shape, right? It tells us what it is. The Astro motels, these folded plates, and this would get replicated. This goes all across the country, right? Sands Motor Inn, another one of these things where this roof becomes the icon, it's signage. The Denny's, that was where they really started to hit their stride. Denny's took them across the country. And you've got these little California coffee shops springing up in Pittsburgh and places back east where folks probably wouldn't have been exposed to this kind of architecture. And this became something that was accessible to most everybody. And for me, when I look at them, I think we've all experienced probably that particular Denny's at least a dozen times, right? And when you look at them, like the norms here, you look at it there on the right and it sort of looks tired and, it's a little worn out. But my God, when you look at it on the left and you see it as it was designed, as it was built, what a spectacular place to eat. What a neat thing here that I think you can see my cursor, the articulated sidewalk happening here, playing with the bay pattern of this structure. And, you could look at this and say, well, gee, that, those beams aren't real. They're just stucco. There is an element of make believe here, but it's almost treating the building like it's a piece of signage, right? It's that roof is icon. And they played with a lot of different ways of doing this. The Carolina Pines Jr. God, look at the glass going right up into this stucco. There's no mullion. I'd love to see what that detail looks like. The witch stand. There were a number of these as well. The sign piercing through the roof. There's no top mullion. The roof line goes straight into the building. The stone continues through. We're dining in a pavilion. It's a garden. And like I say, they were pretty, for the most part, a lot of these places were rather sophisticated. This is a cocktail lounge. There's a coffee shop on the corner. It's the witch stand. It's the same building we just looked at. They weren't diners. The Penguin Coffee Shop. That's a fun one. The same sort of kit of parts, the big roof held up by these stone walls that look like they came out of, Fred Flintstone land. And, it's like you're dining in this garden, these rocks and plantings coming in and out. And that's what these spaces often looked like. This is a great promotional picture that they had done with their branding package that they had done for this particular penguins. And this is the woman that was responsible for a lot of the experience that happened to you in these places, and Helen Fong. And a big part, of what she was doing, she gets credit for doing the interiors. And from what I have read and from what I've been told, by Armet and Davis, is that she did a heck of a lot more than just the interiors. And really, the office sort of saw her as this, she sort of led the direction that these giant roofs would go, right? I mean, this is the majority of the architecture here. Everything else is glass. This is the vertical stuff. You'll never see any of her work that's in blue. The majority of it's in oranges and reds and browns and sort of warm colors that would make you feel welcome. She'd play with, the upholstery, a lot of these things, like they would do the booths that would feel like, in LA with the car culture, the 50s and 60s, the booths start to look like a bench seat in, the front of a 55 Ford or something. Playful colors. but at the same time, not particularly garish. Um, they would do everything in house from, the selecting what was going on the table, all of the furniture. Most of the light fixtures were designed in house. They did everything. It was a one stop, full service. Everything happened in that office. There's a story of her going into one of the buildings uh, complete, and there was this monolithic wall of all these white one by one swimming pool tile kind of things. And she says, "My God, it's just too much," and pulls out her red nail polish and paints, a few of them, some random reds in there to bring the wall to life. Most of the furniture was all Herman Miller. I think they had a thing going with them. Um, they would work with these artists to do installations and murals. They designed all the clocks that were on the walls. Um, they worked a lot with stained glass folks that would do these incredible, uh, modern um, booth dividers and room dividers and things like that. Uh, Pretty interesting and pretty intense for a series of coffee shops, right? And this all happens under this incredible roof. Now, we call this stuff, googie. Um, everyone talks about googie architecture. And supposedly that was a term that was cooked up by the editor for House and Home or something. And it was in reference to a coffee shop that was called Googie's, and Armet and Davis, I think, did the second one. John Lautner did the first one, and John Lautner's work is pretty sculptural and does all these crazy kind of roofs and all these kinds of things. And Armet and Davis were the ones that kind of got uh, saddled maybe with the name Googie's. But of course, this icon as roof worked very well. And this got picked up by everybody. And everybody did this. I mean, the best examples are these, all these chains. I mean, Pizza Hut, right? We recognize the roof. All the Mansard, when we started getting into all the Mansard kind of stuff, Dairy Queen, right? Burger King. How many Chinese restaurants are out there that are in a former Burger King, right? We know it was a Burger King. You can't get rid of the roof. Uh, it's still doing its job after it's done. A&W, um, the Wendy's, the Mansard version of Wendy's, Kentucky Fried Chicken. We've started to kind of move away from the roof as the icon. The buildings don't quite look as different anymore somehow. And then, of course, the Big Mac daddy of them all, McDonald's. And we'd know a McDonald's building anywhere. But their work was a little bit different. And most of it was site specific. And of course, it was a different time. But a lot of it wasn't, a lot of it really wasn't the chains. Um, but the chains helped take them across the country. And I think that's really what uh, people are riding around in these spaceship looking cars, right? And dining in these funky, crazy looking, goofy, fun roof things, right? It's what a neat thing. And they were responsible for the most part for these landscapes that happened as well. Um, Landscapes, every aspect of this sort of curated experience, all to sell a hamburger. Now, of course, we have, I mean, their work is all over, like I say, all over the country. But we have more than a few examples here in town and a few that are site specific. White Spot was a chain here in town, as many of you remember. And they did Armet and Davis did several versions of their buildings, and the one shown here is actually the Tom's Diner site. This was another one further east on Colfax, one of their white spots. And this is a good example of how Armet and Davis would, have this roof be this icon, right? This kind of price tag thing. And in this particular instance, it happened in the vertical. That's that building today. It's still there. I think it's a Mexican restaurant. Yeah. According to the sign, Colfax and Chester. They couldn't get rid of that roof either. The Denver Diner, of course, is a little brother to Tom's Diner. It's the second version of a very, very similar design. Not quite exactly the same, but awful close. The Sam's number 3 downtown, which has had a lot of modifications to that. Some other things here. The Big Boy up in Boulder, 2860 Arapahoe Avenue. And I believe there's a bar in there now. The gut has been absolutely ripped out of it. That's the model that it was. I believe these solar shades are still on the other end elevation from that photograph. And of course, this model, this is everywhere. And there are a number of these still here in Denver. God, look at the color explosion here. This is sort of at the very end of their, the height of what they were doing. Things kind of changed as you know, after that. I love this. This mechanical zone up on the roof comes down and informs the counter area, and it's fun. The headrests on this look like, the headrests on a car or something. The ganged stools here. But there's a number of them here. There's one at 16th and Federal. Alameda and Santa Fe has one. 40th and Peoria is another one that was there, built in conjunction with the motel. So you can still see the one of the ones, floating in a parking lot in front of a motel. The Denny's down in Colorado Springs, which I think just a few months ago, this happened to it. It's currently for sale, and it's the older model prior to the ones that we have up here. And of course, here's Tom's. Some people say it looks like a McDonald's. Maybe it does. Anyways, this was the white spot chain, right? We can still see the little point on the front that's happening in plan instead of like the other one we looked at that happens in the vertical, and this big funky thing that's happening up on top, and the rest of it's just glass with some stone walls. And if you've been in there recently, the gut of it for the most part is original, and you can see a lot of Helen's kinds of things that they were doing in these coffee shops at that time. Everything was about cleanliness, and the building had to really be able to survive anything, right? This thing's been open basically 24 hours a day for the last 50 years. I'd say it looks pretty darn good. The booths are not original. They were replaced fairly recently, actually. The counters and the colors are original, the Formica colors. But you can see that a lot of these kitchens in these things, all of the kitchens really in these, were all custom cabinetry. They were all custom equipment. Um, and very very scientific approach to how to serve food quickly and efficiently, and that's what they were really masters at, especially Armet and Davis themselves. Helen certainly did more of the aesthetic side of things, the softer, more experienced stuff. But my God, those guys made factories for food, and that's exactly what these things were. Um, they had to be open 20, many of them were open 24 hours a day. Look at how the stools are cantilevered out from the curb. Everything could be mopped down. You could spray a fire hose in this thing and it's going to clean up. This plan it is from the set of a Federal and Alameda location for White Spot, but this is actually Tom's. The Federal and Alameda building was a little bit different, but this sheet is from Tom's. Um, and you can see the layout here, and it's, I think, a good representation of their work. You can see back here the actual kitchen. This is the gut of the beast, right? White Spot was serving more than just they were serving, some actual dinners here. And there were some elements of the kitchen that wanted to be hidden. Out here is an exhibition kitchen, and this is coming off of their idea that, when you see the chef in the back, or when you don't see the chef in the back cooking up your meal, you get a little more impatient than when you see the human being actually making your food in front of you. So the way that these sort of kitchen and exhibition kitchens worked is that the food would move forward in stages towards the dining area. Helen would create a series of different seating zones. So, we can see the counter here, right? There's sort of booths up in the front that maybe are for, breakfast or something like that. And then there's some more intimate zones that happen all around here. And what's really nice about them is, look at this. You could hold a whole party in this zone. This could be one huge big party, right, of folks all around these tables. Or it could just as easily function as a person here and a person here, and a separate little group happening over here. So you would get these unique dining experiences that would be different every time. Say you sit here or you sit here. It's a little bit different. And sure, it's not, it's not crazy different, right? This isn't like Casa Bonita. It's a coffee shop, but the level of thought in this shows these are more than just kind of the casual diner. They're really, really thoughtful experiences happening here. So when Kephart got the opportunity to look at Tom's Diner, my God, we jumped all over it. This was certainly right up my alley and something that I was really interested in. I think at that point I probably ate a lunch or a dinner there probably once a week. And having an understanding of where Armet and Davis were coming from and what they were trying to do with this building certainly made us a good fit for this job. And this image is really what landed that job. And at the time, I was really just trying to show that this is the drip line of the roof over here, was that we could take the original Tom's Diner, celebrate it, restore it, we'd bring it back to what they had intended this to be, but create an element that was about outdoor dining. The program would be that we would take what was formerly a parking lot, reduce that to the minimal parking spaces that we could, and drag Helen Fong's original sort of little nest zones out into the environment out from underneath the roof. So what would that look like for Armet and Davis not having a roof? I mean, their work really was about roof. So what we did was created a roof. The idea was to create a roof with this garden, and that the interior would slowly pitter out more and more into garden space. Also, a very important part of their work often was a light datum that the office, the Armet and Davis had discussed with me, was this idea of a light datum. So we thought that this would be really wonderful to restore the original light datum and bring that somehow out into the environment. We had seen how Armet and Davis might handle paving patterns, this complete blurring of indoor and outdoor space happening on the ground level as well. Look, here's terrazzo coming out all the way to the sidewalk edge, and they're wonderful. Um, different materials, different plants, we had an idea of what they might have done. So we played in that world. This was the building here in the 90s after the original signage was replaced. But you can see, the gravel, the hot mop roof up on here. And, I can imagine this gravel being the similar gravel as to what's happening down here on the ground, sort of like the roof plane has been lifted. But we wanted to take this and really honor it and make it something that I think would have been in Armet and Davis's kind of palette. I love this photo because look how humane this makes this look, right? All these big ideas, these spatial concepts. $1.99 for pancakes, all you can eat. Steak and eggs. This is real people going in there and enjoying something, right? That's magic. It's like, great design for people that certainly aren't expecting it. Natalie, who's on the call here and has worked on the project alongside me, actually sent me this just the other day, and it shows the original branding and the original sign for Tom's, which I had no idea that's what that looked like. I mean, good God, can you imagine putting a 24-foot tall sign on Colfax today? That thing is enormous. But this is where we landed, and this is where the concept's going. And I'll give you a little bit of a peek on here. How are we doing on time? I can't see my clock. We're getting close. Here's the original diner, right? A parking court and this wonderful dining experience that would happen out beyond the glass, restoring the building to what it was, but bringing it up a little bit. Sort of trying to lose the diner aspect of things. And we knew that we wanted to create a series of zones similar to what Helen was doing on the gut of it originally. But this wasn't going to just be a regular restaurant. It'd be more of a cocktail lounge. Serve food, but for the most part, this is going to be about drinks, lounge zones, outdoor dining, blurring these paving patterns in and out, in a series of cabanas, private little party things that you can rent, right? A big green that folks can dine on, stage space where there might be a little jazz set happening out there, all under this canopy of trees, letting the original roof do what it does and be the star of the show, and the rest of it sort of working in the language of, but still being distinctly different. And what that starts to look like here in elevation, we've since went through some VE exercises on this and changed the language of a few of the materials on the exterior of it. The client was very interested in doing sort of some tiki theming, which we saw in Armet and Davis's stuff. While this isn't a tiki restaurant, it just sort of says fun, right? Kind of plays off of what is the reality of Colfax. It's a fun and kind of funky place, right? Glass walls, experimenting with period materials, texture 111, corrugated fiberglass, but handling them in a very clean, a very simple way. It's something that would be respectful. The original building here is another slide showing the language of cabanas that could happen along the back wall. These tiki gods happening, the wonderful outdoor lounge, fountains occurring, drowning out the noise of the street, and celebrating different zones in the backyard. That's what that looks like, built here in third dimension. The landscape architect that we're working with is Chris Dunn, who is one of our guys here. And Chris is actually the son-in-law of the master landscape architect, Dan Kiley. And Chris isn't on the call tonight, but
I'm here, Josh.
oh, you are, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh boy, well,
Enjoyed the whole presentation.
oh, so we kind of modified the language and did something with a little more sophistication that might not have been out of the sort of the gridded nature, the structured nature of Dan's landscapes. And it was a great experience, certainly for me, to work with Chris and to dig into this and play these games. And that helped differentiate us somewhat from Armet and Davis. But overall, the goal of that particular project was to play the games that these guys were doing, celebrate them, and know where to break their rules. And God, I speaking for myself, I think it's been a long project, but it's been a heck of a lot of fun, playing in a language of modern architecture that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise. So I'll open it up. I'll shut my slide down here, and I'll open it up for questions.
Josh, with this slide right here, this is Chris. I love this mural that they put on the model in the lower right-hand corner coming across. I'm thinking maybe we could do something like that on that parking lot wall.
Oh God, that'd be fantastic.
Wouldn't that be great?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's cool.
When will this be open?
So it's looking like Christmas, and that's a heck of a time to open up a place that the majority of the seating is outdoor, isn't it? But that looks like that's where we're headed. But we'll see. Maybe later.
Are they making any plans for how to make the outdoor seating work in cold weather?
Really, Dwayne, it's we'll have portable heaters out there. I think kind of the running joke is it's a drinking establishment, so they're going to be a little warm anyways.
Yeah.
It does have great sun exposure, certainly during the day. And these cabanas that Josh has envisioned have the ability to host, and just figuring out the detailing of these cabanas has been a wonderful experience, where we've looked at all the mid-mod designs for Palm Springs, and it's inexpensive, but it's going to be very, very, very sophisticated and elegant when it's built. So there's the ability to hang heaters back there, and speakers, and we have some amazing lighting being designed. I think this is going to be the place to go in Denver. It's going to be so hip and really cool.
Yeah.
What kind of trees are those?
Honey locust. Dwayne, we've got some of you. We took some of yours.
You found some, huh?
We did. We're pre-growing some, so but not big ones like you're getting.
Oh, well, ours aren't that big. Ours are 2-inch calipers, but
What's ours?
These will be 3.5 to 4.
yeah, so yours are larger than ours.
Okay.
Josh, well, what is the, you mentioned getting your parking count figured out. Was there any dance with Denver on getting kind of amendment to get a bit more dining space out there, or did it kind of balance out pretty smoothly?
For the most part, it balanced out.
Good.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 spots, right, Chris?
I think there's 8, including a handicap spot.
Okay. There's 8. I think there was a little bit of a dance, but it wasn't anything that was too terribly painful.
Well, and just thinking of my experiences at Tom's Diner, I'm never driving there or driving away. It's always
That was the thought.
it's a late night spot, and
And it will be. I mean, especially, you picture sort of a upscale, but it's still affordable.
Yeah.
And and I really appreciate that about this. I've Armet and Davis felt like they and that's all the moderns at the time. The best for the most for the least. They really felt, and I would say that they accomplished it, that they were providing a good experience for folks that could go out and dine at some place that I mean, not fancy, right? But some place that looked like this. You could get dressed up, go out and grab a bite with your family, and you feel like you're doing something, but you're really just at a diner. It's affordable food, but it's a great experience. And that's what they were selling at that time. The average guy could come in here and, just grab a cup of coffee too, sure. But there was some dignity to this, and that's what's staying at Tom's. The drink prices, they're not going to be through the roof. It's going to try to be an affordable place for regular folks to go, and it's still nice.
What kind of site furniture are you looking at for the outdoor dining areas? And how does that match the architectural style?
We look at this is the furniture that they were picking. Most of the interiors on these things they had their go-to was Herman Miller. So it was all fantastic Herman Miller furniture, everything was top notch. And why would it not be, right? The chairs are built like battleships. They could handle anything just like the building. It's really, at the time, was probably the only thing that would really take the beating that these places would give them. We can't, it's just not in our budget to go down to Herman Miller and get this stuff. So we're doing stuff that plays off of old modern stuff. And some of the things we're getting are legitimate real pieces of design. I mean, those Acapulco chairs, the kind of the wire mesh stuff, I forget what they are with those big arms. So we're being selective, and we're trying to do stuff that's appropriate, but within our budget. Humble materials, kind of thing. Great spaces.
Yeah, this really is a fascinating project. What is your approach to signage for the building going to be?
Well, I know I'm not allowed to show this to you, and because we're recording it, I won't. But I have the design on my table right here. We are, we're, Tom had replaced, and you can see it here in this drawing. He had done a version of this sign. That's not the original sign. We saw it, right? But he had done this great frame. We couldn't get this size of a sign up there right now. And in all honesty, there's better places to spend the money than doing a new sign frame. So we're going to keep this shape, but we're going to provide a new insert. And the restaurant won't be called Tom's. It's going to be called something different. Tomasino obviously still owns it, but it's part of the idea of getting rid of the diner late night. Hey, I'm going to go in there and get my steak and eggs or my chicken fried steak or whatever. And part of that has been rebranding this deal. We're happy that, he had done something, or his sign designer from before had done something that worked within the white spot logo, so it was still the roof texture. It was still the roof was the deal. And we're going to keep that.
The working name for the project, it's changed, but the working name was Tom's Electric Garden. And that kind of gives you a sense of where this whole thing is headed.
So signage is always a real interest of mine with mid-century modern. So with signage on the interior of the building and directional signage have some sort of a relationship to the design of the building.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's, when you looked at their old stuff here, there's that peak in that tag, right? And that's the building, right? There really isn't a building here. It's just a big roof. So that original brand that he by chance happened to keep here, we're running with that shape. And the icon for this new spot is that roof. So it's going to function the way that it was always intended to. Weirdly enough, at some point, and I don't know why, that original sign was replaced, and it didn't really have that shape on it anymore. So Tom, in a way, restored it by putting that little pointed thing on there.
Dwayne, this isn't architecture, but for the trees, because this is currently a surface parking lot, we're going to excavate all of this out, probably about 3 feet down, and replace all the soil. And we're using over probably 60% of the site, these stratovaults that are essentially sophisticated milk cartons that are bigger and stacked together, but they're structural, so we can put all of the concrete walks and dining patios over on top of these things and maintain uncompacted soil underneath. So these trees should, we can kind of control how much water and drainage they get. We can root all the utilities underneath and through them, but the roots are going to just have unencumbered access to uncompacted soil throughout this whole area. So we're really excited about it. We've been able to convince the developer, which is not just Tomasina, but there's a group out of Ohio and some other folks that are investing in this to spend the money to really focus on the root growth zone for these trees. So we're pretty excited about seeing that. I think this will be the first time in Denver, at least, where the extent of this system has been installed.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
So, Josh, when you guys were putting together, I mean, if it's December, you've done your CD set and everything. Has there been a dive into any happy surprises on existing drawings or any funky kind of detailing you came across, or were there no drawings to dive into?
Well, we worked with Armet and Davis to get at least design intent, right, for this building. Now, COVID hit those guys hard, and they're not doing so good. It's kind of, I mean, it's a real damn shame that they were able to survive all of this, and it just doesn't look like things are going so well for them. So that being said, they were happy to give us what they had. But we would have loved to have gotten into their real files, which they own. I mean, they have them. And they felt that they probably do have the original set for this building and probably the design renderings and all that kind of stuff for it. But they weren't able to give that to us. So what we did get was the Federal and Alameda location, which is a little brother to this building, and the little brother, the third version, after the Denver Diner location, which, used to be this. The drawings are not totally consistent with what was built in the field. And as you can imagine, by looking at this plan, I mean, there's some straight walls to pull dimension strings off of. So it's a little bit different what is built there than what was drawn. We can say that. We know that the roof actually overhangs a little bit of the property line. But overall, it has some great details. I mean, like how the and I don't have a good picture to show that. And just take my word for it. Oh, here you go. There's no mullion at the top of the glazing, right? Well, the roof is straight. All of the stuff is straight. So all these angles are straight, right? But you've got this front wall that's on an angle and plan towards us. You've got the roof coming down onto it at a slope. What is this? I think it's a 3 or something. It might actually be a 2 at a slope. So how do you put a mullion up against the flat surface of the ceiling that's on the slope and it's at an angle, right? It's not a store-bought mullion. The original ones are buried up at the framing. They kind of float down below it. And the ceiling material comes up to the glass. There's a little neoprene gasket thing there. So there's weird details that we couldn't do now. But luckily we can put back in because they're historic. Like the mitered glass corners, right? And they're not 45 degrees. They're this goofy number that we see here in plan. And there's that glass corner there. There's one here next to the front door. It's only like 6 inches long. There's one over here. So there's this one over here. There's no mullion there. It's a glass corner. So there's been really, really thoughtful and very elegant details all over this thing. And this particular building was finished in 67. So this is the last gasp, really on a lot of this stuff that they were doing. The building's changed a lot. The set that was sent over to us was their white spot location in 78, and this building changed drastically. They didn't have any of those corner glass conditions. The terrazzo floors go away. It's all ceramic tile. There's mullions up everywhere. The glass is significantly smaller, and it kind of shows what happened to their office as time went on. I mean, stuff changed. These restaurants really kind of became old. They're pretty passé. and nobody wanted to build this stuff, especially when everything else gets a mansard roof. The attitude changed drastically, and it makes this building pretty special, especially for Denver.
Josh, you want to talk a little bit about working with Denver Historic? Because I think that's had been that's an interesting story in itself.
Yeah. Well, actually, Natalie is on the call. Here, how do I stop sharing? Okay. Now we can see each other.
Yeah, so we got approached by Kephart to kind of help navigate that, because as those of you who are in Denver know, Tom's Diner was kind of an uproar when it first hit the news that they were thinking about. I think originally weren't they thinking about putting like a housing development or something in the parking lot?
There's going to be 8 stories. I
Yeah.
did the density study and the drawing for it.
So it kind of piqued the interest of preservation, historic Denver, and a lot of the preservation folks around the city, and everybody got up in arms about how important it is. So anyway, I think after that, everybody sort of changed their plan on what would happen. And then we were asked to consult as sort of a historic preservation specialist to so there is an easement on the building. The Colorado Historical Foundation has an easement on the building. So navigating basically the design and consulting with Cindy Naskey on the easement pieces. So it's just an exterior easement. But you know, Josh has made it really easy, actually. His presentations to both the Colorado Historical Foundation and the folks, because we did toy with the idea of going after a state historical fund grant for the storefront and the roof, which we might still do at some point for the roof. We're not 100% sure yet, but you know, his thoughtfulness on matching the Armet and Davis design process and really celebrating this building for what it is made it sort of an easy consultation, and everybody's really happy. We did do some, you know, negotiations of moving front walls and for the garden walls and things like that, but they were really minor items.
Yeah.
From my perspective, just watching it kind of as a consultant, I think that it's really some of the things that have been changed have really enhanced the whole composition of the project and just made it work, not only respect the building, but make the whole experience work a lot better as well. So I think it's been a really positive process.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, and I can't
I'm
wait to
just
actually
curious.
tell people about it. It's been all secret right now. So.
I know. Jamie, you said something?
Oh yeah, this was a great presentation.
Well, thank you. Well, I'll adjourn before it gets
I was
too
curious
late.
if there's other Armet and Davis buildings in the country.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, sorry. Just a quick question. If there's other examples of Armet and Davis designs that have been reused or redeveloped or kind of preserved that you've looked at that were kind of examples for this as well.
I'll tell you, and Adam, let's mark it as meeting adjourned unless anybody has a, can I hear a motion for that before I answer? I can't do it.
Motion.
Okay. Second. Second. All in favor? Okay. All opposed. Honestly, no. There really hasn't been a lot. That's surprising, isn't it? The amount of these little coffee shops and all this kind of stuff, no one has really touched them. There's a lot of them that have been restored, mostly in California. But I think think back, even think now, but let alone 5-10 years ago, this stuff is viewed as disposable. in sure, it has spatial concepts. They were church designers. They were just doing the best that they could for the problem that they needed to solve. But it was, even they viewed it as kind of disposable. Um, before they passed away, when some of their buildings were being, hey, we should save this. This shouldn't go away. It's part of our culture, whatever. They thought it was a joke. Why would somebody want to save this? It had a purpose. It's outlived its purpose. It can go away. So yeah, not a lot of it has been saved. So this is a serious precedent for that these buildings can be saved and that they can be something different. While this isn't, I mean, it would have been a very, very neat project to have done 8 stories of apartments in that back alley. Or it didn't park. You couldn't do it. If it was 12 stories of apartments and then use the original building as the clubhouse, the amenity zone, and maybe there's a little coffee shop in it, it could have been a really, really neat development that would have been respectful. And I think it would have also set the precedent for saving things and more of an adaptive reuse. I think what we did for this particular project, though, is the best solution. And we're not really reusing it in a different way. It's still a restaurant, but it's been massaged. And I think it's going to be, I think it shows folks what some of this stuff could be. Because it's easy to look at it and think it's just worn out and tired, and God, does that just look weird. But like I said, when you see that black and white picture of that, and it's sparkling and new and in the dark, and it's this beacon, you can picture the idea that client had, where there's a 60 Impala sitting in there on the showroom floor, and you're trying to sell the car. It never goes away.
That's what strikes me about their work, though, is it really is serious architecture. And actually, it's interesting to know that they were church designers first, because if there's any building type where the exterior so clearly reflects the interior much of the time, it's churches. And yet that's what they were doing with these, what a lot of people consider pedestrian buildings is, if you look at the McDonald's, that's just a box with a mansard roof tacked on. But in the case of these buildings, they really went to great effort to make it look like these sculptural roofs were floating over the ground. I mean, this is serious architecture. I'm actually a little surprised that they downplayed it.
It informs the spaces too. It always does.
Yeah.
Like even just that Denny's, that late Denny's that you see everywhere. The fact that that mechanical zone along the top, is broadcast inside, not the inside outside. It's broadcast inside, and then that informs the little zone. It's neat.
The roof really is a sculpture from every single angle, not just from the outside. And I think that's really impressive. The other thing that strikes me is I wonder if Richard Crowther was inspired by their work, because if there's one architect in Denver that I can think of who definitely practiced roofitecture, in addition to having, flamboyant signage and sculptural forms and things like that, it's Richard Crowther. And I'm wondering if his work was informed by theirs at all.
If I'm remembering right, and I don't know if this is, don't quote me on it, but I am almost certain that Crowther did the earlier white spots, and then they hired Armet and Davis. I'm pretty sure.
Interesting.
Because I think there's a Crowther building somewhere on Colfax, I think, that has this, like, the roof comes down, it folds down towards the ground or something like that. And I think that was a white
One of the motels, right? I think I know which one you're talking about.
maybe
I don't
it's
remember the name of it.
facts. Might be somewhere else then.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this kind of influences the rest of the, if when this project is successful, how it'll influence how all these developers see what they can turn these coffee shop diners into. Like, it doesn't need to turn into residential. Maybe it could be more of a hot spot because I'm thinking there's now construction fence around that motel at Colorado and Colfax, right? The one that's right off there, or maybe it's Colorado, or maybe it's Colfax and
Oh, that yeah.
No, you're right, Matt. Yeah, it's Colorado Boulevard and Colfax.
and then they're doing
Nearest
something with
restaurant.
that.
Is it
Yeah,
double T's? Like 4, 5, 6 stories or something?
Right. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
And it's you can kind of reactivate the space without a complete scrape and rebuild, which is appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I did it turned out nice. I think it turned out okay. Turned out very, very nice. The there's a condo deal. It was an old Roland Wilson motel at Colfax and Vrain. And it was a senior living deal it was senior living for a while. And then we just redid it as condos. And the thought was that could have been, sort of the beginning. It was a building that we couldn't afford to tear down. It needed to stay. I mean, it was precast double T's and, it was a nice building. It was a really nice building with all glass in the front. And we treated that like it was, it had some dignity. But those motels are, God, they're fantastic opportunities, and they all have giant surface parking lots.
Well, yeah,
So like if you took those old motels and you made them, um, studios, right? That's your mix for the studios. It has some funky, cool, that's the brand. That's the old part is the brand. And then you do the newer, bigger stuff behind it where it was surface park. And the developments can really work and they can, it can still be affordable. You can have a mix of different kinds of people, different income brackets in the same development. That's very, very neat.
Yeah, and either when I think Colfax, my mind goes from like Grant to Colorado, but that motel topic has me thinking like Lakewood, Colfax, like
Yeah.
all of those motels. That's a neon sign heaven out there, right?
Yep.
So that all could get reactivated in the same vein too.
When hospitality comes back, I think now I'm looking forward to the first daring developers willing to turn one of those into a hospitality destination again.
Oh yeah, a little boutique thing.
Yeah.
Denver's modern hotel. Yeah. And then you could still do apartments on the surface lot and it'd make money. That's and for me, that's what I get jazzed about those kind of projects because there's a reason why Tom's Diner needed to go away. It didn't work anymore. That was done. Its time was coming to an end very, very quickly. Things have just changed and they've changed rapidly very recently. Imagine, picture some, 22-year-old kid. He's not eating a chicken fried steak, right?
Right.
Where's my avocado toast and my veggie burger? It's just there's a different public that dines at those places, and just stuff has changed. So if it can adapt, great. It's got to have a purpose, and that's what I think so great about those buildings is that they can meet the different needs. They can become something. That Denny's down in Colorado Springs that just burned up. I think the building is still there. I think it's in okay shape, but man, that's got a great big parking lot out behind it, and it would make an incredible Tom's clone. I don't think Colorado Springs is ready for that yet, though, but if it stays around long enough.
Josh, can you talk a little bit about the developer from Ohio and what they brought? They kind of got it pretty quickly.
Yeah. So it's a group out of Ohio. And they, so for the most part, they do a lot of multifamily kind of stuff. They're called GBX. And, they do mostly multifamily, and it's kind of these passion projects. There are a lot of projects that folks would maybe not look at as historic, and that's what they do is they'll buy up a historic building, and a lot of times they're kind of the goofy ones. They're modern ones, or they're not the historic building with the little Victorian stuff, right? They like the weird stuff. That's why they got interested in Tom's. And they'll partner with some folks and make some deals happen. And they've got a great portfolio. They've done very, very, kind of typical, what you'd think of historic kind of stuff. But their portfolio over the last several years has really kind of went more in this different direction. And this was their first foray into restaurant. But they're an exciting group to work with, and they're looking at other sites around. Uh, and I think last month, Mike Skinner mentioned that why am I blanking on this? The hell was it called? I know it. I have a book on that stinking place. The huge Tiki Temple restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, the Mai Kai. That is the kind of development a group like that would be interested in. An old restaurant that could be turned into something updated, brought along a little, and develop the rest of the site into condos or apartments or something else that the community needs. The Mai Kai. God, I hope somebody saves that. Yeah, I think it's this their work is so neat because it's like it's the undiscovered, it's the underdog. And it's so pedestrian and so accessible.
And yet it's very quality work. I mean, they didn't have to have invisible corners and things like that. Like that was something they chose to do.
Yeah, it was really, really neat. Really neat stuff. I guess, and what is very interesting, and I probably should have mentioned this during the talk, is even when the stuff was new, nobody thought it was any good. It was just junk, right? It's just stuff. It's just another restaurant. Like House and Home making fun of it and calling it googie and stuff like that. But like, so and I can't remember exactly where it is. I think it's somewhere in Jersey. Nice did a gas station, and it was a prototype, and I think it was a Shell. I don't remember what it was. It was a prototype gas station. And it was a Mies building. This thing looked like Farnsworth or something. But it was all black, it was a Mies building as a gas station. Really long, had these two arms that came out. in this little glass cube in the middle that was the service bay and all this stuff. An incredible piece of design, right? The sales were so bad at the gas station because nobody recognized it as a gas station. It was so quiet that it didn't work. And can you imagine pulling up in your shitbox Chevy into this thing? You feel like, oh my God, I should have driving gloves on and an XKE, right? Like, it was so good that it didn't work as a gas station. It didn't catch your eye. The sign was way down low on this little stone base, and people would drive by it. It looked like a little modern house, and not. It wasn't. It wasn't part of the carscape.
That's
And
hilarious.
you know, when you look at, okay, the job of these buildings is they're to sell hamburgers. They're these meals. They're food factories. When you think about that, yeah, Mies did a great piece of architecture there, but it wasn't the appropriate solution for the problem. This kind of stuff was. Like my dad would recognize that as a fun place. I don't have to think about it. It's fun. It's stupid. But at the same time, all the spatial things, all the detailing is so sophisticated. I think it's absolutely genius. And apparently a lot of other people did too, because everybody did it. And the fast food industry, ran that in a really watered down way, but ran that thing all the way out.
Yeah, obviously they weren't bringing the high architecture,
No.
but what they also clearly recognized, that perhaps Armet and Davis or White Spot or others didn't necessarily execute very well because they were pretty inconsistent from building to building, was the branding opportunity. That was a core part. That's why you can recognize eons after they've moved away from the standard, an old Burger King or an old Pizza Hut or even an old Taco Bell. There were even I stumbled across a website a few years ago that was called Was a Pizza Hut. Somebody taking pictures of repurposed Pizza Huts across the country. I think it was like a Tumblr feed or something like that. But it's like they recognized that with consistency of this archetype, that it was a branding opportunity. They wouldn't even have to put a sign on it. You'd know it was a McDonald's or a Pizza Hut.
Yeah, a wedding chapel that's now a Pizza Hut, or a Long John Silver's.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's neat. It's neat stuff.
Which is interesting. Their work was so high end, even if they didn't execute on that branding thing as well as McDonald's, for instance.
Yeah. It was all site specific too. Like, even, can you imagine just some little chain, 7, 8 restaurants out here in Denver? You're a big firm that's doing Denny's, all these hotels, and they still did that. And not only did they did that, but that they changed the design for every site, so it was slightly different. Site specific. Nuts. Absolutely.
I mean, that's serious architecture when you're doing that.
It is. But you know what the thing is? Like, when it comes time for those little Denny's to wrap up, no one's going to want to save that. We'll document it before it gets torn down. Same thoughts are there, but it's just a Denny's. No one's going to want to stand on that. I don't know. I like buildings to be saved.
Heard anybody crying for the retirement of McDonald's distinctive neo-Mansard brand as they've eliminated them?
Uh-huh. Yeah, they are getting rid of that stuff. There isn't many of those left. It's just kind of a shame.
and all the brands are doing it. You know, I can't think of any that isn't that are completely repurposing their buildings for better or for worse.
Yeah.